Good morning. How are you today? I've got something really fun I want to talk about today, and it's about this new I call it the epic skill. It's understanding how important, how fun, how instantly successful we can be when we are working with will. And I use the term unconditional will, which I came across last week in some of my reading, and it's just everything started to kind of come in and download really fast and bring me images and ideas. So I thought I would share that with you. So thank you for being here, and let's go. So we're energetic beings, right? We're just this big ball of energy. And the way that we understand ourselves, the way that we have self knowledge helps us when we need to adapt, right? When we need to move, when we need to create balance, when we need to manage our reactions like a rage or anger, when these things come in. So, a lot of what I've been bringing to you over the last 6 years and how I've accumulated this information is through this parenting lens, because to me it's that sacred triad. It's the mother, the womb, the father, the seed, the child, right? The outcome. However we do that in whatever family systems we have the combination of the seed and the egg, which turns into the child. And that child has the genetic history, has the energetic history, has the familial history of each of the parent in that, as well as the parents that are raising them. So they can be the same and they can be different, right? So this parenting lens then turns into, and in my particular case, what happens when you have adolescents or young adults that are in this really hard pushback phase with their parents or in self sabotage because they can't free themselves from some of the patterns that they can't stop themselves or the family can't stop. So my focus has always been to go to the parents and say, how do we free this beautiful child of yours from your expectations, from your patterns, from your belief systems, so that they can be who they are. So that's how my coaching has launched over the years, and then turned into ways of studying what those replicated patterns are. And this one I think is really really cool because our children scan and record everything that we do, everything that is in their immediate family, the parents, the grandparents, the siblings, the extended, and they repeat back, right? They play back through their own interpretation. So I just finished watching my almost 2.5-year-old granddaughter, and we were folding laundry, and she was up on the counter, and she just took the whole pile and threw it off onto the ground. And I went, that was not very nice. Now, why don't you get down and let's pick this up? Now, for whatever reason, that made her laugh. And for the rest of the 3 days, she was like, that was not very nice. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just this repetitive. It was such a perfect example of scan, record, and playback, right? I'm really happy that I didn't say anything else because that wasn't very nice, was me coming into my response in a different way, right? So there are markers where our kids are going to scan and record, and then they're going to try to push back, right? And they're going to try to create this individuation. And so we know that happens, twos and threes, sometimes early fours. We also know that it definitely happens at 13 and 14 and can extend all the way till 15 or 16, or even stay until they're in their 20s. But there's this adolescent individuation. And then there are phases where it might happen in the 20s, after starting a career, or starting to work, or finishing college if they went to college, or figuring out who they want to partner with separate from what mom and dad want, and blah blah blah, right? So, or there's the other one, the individuation that happens in their 30s or 40s when they decide to go to family therapy or individual therapy and work on the family dynamics, right? Because what they're doing is they're individuating behind what it was that they were conditioned by us as parents, consciously or unconsciously, through school, through all of these places, right? So what we know about how we were conditioned, how we understand those hurts, those things that work, those things that didn't work, right? Our hurts, our pains, our reactions, our behavior to energy. The more we understand this, the easier it gets to sort of deal with a child, a teen, a young adult, a partner, a lover, a workmate, a friend, when they're in reaction. And that may involve us and it may not. It may just be them doing their own thing and you being a witness to it, the impetus for it. I mean, it could be a lot of different reasons, but understanding that it's energetic is a game changer. So you've seen me sort of hounding you on social media, doing posts, doing videos on energy management because it is the single biggest game changer in all relationships. So then taking that, I want to move it into will. Okay. So will, such a huge concept. Willpower, the way we set our intentions forward, the way we put our personality forward, the way we navigate for ourselves is our will. Now within the tree of life, that's on the right shoulder. It's called Gebra. And Gebra is the 5. And 5 is the number of choice, which is I can go down this path or I can go down this path or I can go down that path and move to this one and move to that. It's where we have to actively make choices, right? Um, Gebra is ruled by Mars. Our willpower comes from Mars, from Aries, from Jupiter. It's fire, it's action, it's momentum. It's where our creativity resides. It's where our sensuality resides and how we interact with the senses and use them to create images or feelings or emotions, right? How we create direction for ourselves comes from the right side of the body, from our willpower, right? Now, willpower and fire are connected. The will of the human and the fire of the momentum that comes with fire are connected. So fire is the element of spirit, passion, action, enthusiasm. It's that electrical pulsing, boom, 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 like a lightning rod that comes down when things are related and when there's movement. So we know that we can easily anger. We know that we can easily laugh. We know that we can easily put passion. We know that when we're in the flow with that, our creativity is just open. And we know how hard it is to create that when we're under duress, right? So here are some cards that show us what happens when we're under duress. We're focusing on so many things that our willpower has. It's in survival, absolute survival. We know that when our willpower is happy, we're in full creativity and little bubbles of light and we're in complete surrender, right? Um, with fire, if you take the 4 elements, they sort of drop like a lightning rod. So it starts with fire. So fire is that electrical energy, right? It's how things are related to one another. It's how we experience the world. I'm related to this tree. I can feel the tree when the tree and I are together. When I'm out in nature, when I'm with a human being, I have an experience with them, right? And then it shifts over to water, which is it's a liquid energy. So it goes from electrical to liquid, which is why or am I feeling like this? And then it starts to put ripples of patterns and behaviors like because I do this, because I do this, because I do this. And so what we see is the patterns and behaviors are are affecting everything. And then it drops over to air, which is this gaseous energy. And it's where our reason and our thoughts and our intellect come into play. And what I like about this is that it's our capacity to understand why I feel or how I'm connected and why I'm feeling the things. And then we put it into a construct like, oh, this is what this is. And then we move it over to earth into the body, into solid energy, and it becomes embodied. So it starts with fire, goes to emotion, goes to air, and then down into body. So when we're dealing with relationships, and there's anger, we have to sort of calm the electricity down. And then we have to change the patterns of behaviors. And then we have to change the way that we think about this, right? So this is hard to do when we are in a conditioned state. So conditioned is when we're dependent upon when we're dependent on something. It's when we're trained or influenced by someone or something else to have a response. So a conditioned response is you hear the bell, you drop everything at recess and you go into class. Or you watch the clock, and if it's 5 minutes to the hour when the bell rings, you start getting restless and you can hardly wait till you get home, right? So whether it's in family, whether it's in school, whether it's in the churches or the culture that we experience, is that we have conditioned states. If you're going to sit in this movie, you have to be quiet. If you go into a church, you have to sit still and listen unless you're out in Sunday school. I mean, like, there's so many things that all these rules. My parents were really good at throwing the Emily Post thing, which is when you sit at the dinner table, you sit still and you say please and thank you. And like the dinner table was one of those times where you're just like, food should be experienced in conversation, and that was not the conditioned state of my family system. So then you have these conditioned states. Now, when we unconditionally love, unconditional approaches, it means it's without conditions, right? It's that there aren't any perceived limitations or cultural rules that are set in place, or there aren't any walls or constructs that hold us. So how do we take our willpower out of a conditioned state and put it into an unconditioned state where it can be freed? Because we have fiery kids. We have kids that do much better outside than they do in classrooms. We have strong willed children. We have strong willed adults who need to access their creativity, right? So when we have an unconditional will, when our will is unconditionally accepted, we can refuse to react and stop, and we can back up the energy, because it's kind of like, oh man, I hit that same thing. I have a reaction every time. I'm just going to navigate around that, right? We have the courage to navigate with passion through the things we like and don't like. So it's almost like we're steering our fire, our momentum. I use it like riding a bike. To ride a bike in the middle of a town where you ride, stop, put your foot down, walk it across a crosswalk, get back on, ride. It hinders the process. You don't understand the beauty of riding a bike. When you're on a bike on a trail, or on an open road, and you can turn right, or you can go over on this side, and you can use the momentum to steer you, then there's freedom and there's creativity, and every part of your body starts to open up. So our fire, our momentum, our generator, we learn how to access that with freedom. We let go of the conditions and we go, so when can I just really like open this car, this motorcycle, this motorbike, this bicycle up and go fast or be in the moment? When do I need to sort of turn it down and sort of weave slowly, still being present and paying attention, because it requires presence. It requires full presence in order to have unconditional will, which is, I'm going to be here no matter what. So we harness the internal power of our energy and we steer it. We partner with it. We play with it like a motor, right? Or like a dial on a stove, right? So I have 6 tips for you. And before I start on those, I have a 7-week coaching package, which is focusing on energy, focusing on your elements, focusing on how you harness all of this and step into leadership with your children, leadership with your partner, leadership with yourself. And it's, man, I'm 3 weeks into it with new clients, and it is fabulous. So if you want to do this with me, or you're curious, just drop down into the descriptions, and you can drop me a note um, through my website, or you can put a note here on YouTube, and I'll respond to you. Okay. So 6 tips. Whew. Since fire and will are interconnected, right? And they provide the creativity, it's time to sort of relax that creativity so that you can create what you desire, what you absolutely desire, because desire comes from fire, right? So number 1, have the courage to explore your own fire. What does it do? What does it mean? When am I hot? When am I angry? When am I aggressive? When am I competitive? Ooh, turn it down. When am I nurturing? When am I centered? I like these two, the king and queen of fire. When am I centered? When am I nurturing? When am I present? When am I providing warmth, right? To yourself and to the external world, right? Um, what do I do to open up my creativity? It's beautiful. Number two, play with the idea of the gas stove sort of knob, right? Which is you can turn it up and you can make it really, really hot when you need to, when you want to run fast, when you want to play hard, when you want to dance to loud music, when you have something that really needs a brilliant sort of download of your energy. And you can turn it all the way down when you want to hold a little 2-year-old who's sad and you just want to hum and hold this warmth, right? So you're the regulator, not the external world. So an unconditioned will is separating from the external world and putting the regulation of the willpower onto you. You create your way to navigate and the amount of willpower you use, the power of your will, your freedom. Number three, switch from reacting, which is "Wah! Something happened," or "I can't believe that person just cut me off," or whatever happens when our fire just sort of builds up and we start to do something, right? So switch from reacting to responding, which is if you're looking ahead, you can go, "I bet you that guy's going to pull out in front of me right now." And so you start to move over and you let that happen and you don't react. You go into response, which is I'm paying attention, I'm present in my body, I'm playing with how to steer, right? And choose how I respond. So presence and fire are essential. They go hand in hand, right? Number four, trust yourself in what you see and what you feel and what you observe, because not everything needs your response. Sometimes it just needs your energy of your presence. So your vibration or your presence is something that they can trust in themselves. Like, hey, mom's just sitting off to the side, letting us figure this out. Or I'm having a bad day and I'm throwing things and stomping around, and my partner is just sitting there holding unconditional love and unconditional will for me, right? So try this, show up on the sidelines and enjoy the process. Sort of watch what others are doing and keep your fire going. Keep it centered, keep it here, keep it warm. And watch how there's no conditions associated with how you provide warmth. I love this. Number five, I use the word play a lot. I've been using the word play every time I talk about fire because it's powerful and it impacts others easily. And it can either, impact them and push them away, or it can draw them towards you and pull you in. When we play, we are in internal joy. We're in happiness. We're in contentment. We're in acceptance. Love exudes from us because our fire and our sense of being and our love is all in alignment. And I think that play is how it happens. When there's less stress and there's more open freedom to play, things manage to work themselves out much easier. And number six, last one, always is to have compassion for yourself as you navigate through this fire energy, and you reshape it and you figure out like how to hone it, how to allow it to be free, how to sort of steer and navigate through old complex traps that used to exist for you. And how it affects the relationships you're in, and then to have compassion, of course, for those people who are doing that and are not aware that their willpower, that their fire, when it comes from an unconditioned state, is pure magic. So if you like this, please, if you've enjoyed this and you found information, please like it, please share it, please pass it around, because I'm just talking to you each week about the things that have my attention and the things that I want to share with you. So I hope you enjoy it, and feel free to put comments, anything you're noticing, any questions you might have down in the comment section, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye bye.